Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalam ala Sayyidina al-Anbiya wal-Mursaleen. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una. وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Okay, so now we're going deeper into the Mabahith al-Alfaz, and this is very important. And we're basically looking at the difference between a cat, the cat, all cats. That's what we're looking at. Right? So a cat is called mutlaq. Right? So say, go and buy me a cat. Like if you bought any cat, that would count, right? Could be this one, could be the other one, any cat. Right? That's called mutlaq. Okay. Now, what's the opposite of mutlaq is muqayyad. So I say, bring me a Maine Coon cat. Right? We've seen those Mizan, like big cats with huge fluffy cats.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Maine Coon. So I was like, so now you didn't get me one of those. I did taqyid. I said specifically this one. You didn't do that. Right? And then in reality, in the mutlaq, is always kind of muqayyad from a point of view. So, like for example, the age of the Maine Coon cat is mutlaq. So, a Maine Coon cat is mutlaq in respect to age and origin, but is muqayyad in respect to which breed. Okay, so that's so a cat, a specific cat, but it's still a cat or a specific cat. The cat is this one, right? I didn't ask. I'm not talking about it actually. I'm talking about which one. So, right. So we have mutlaq, we have khas. This cat, those two people, those five people, those 18 million people, right? So I want, for example, everyone on the face of the earth today to do the following. That is what's called khas, because it doesn't include without a limit, right? I didn't say any, I didn't say all, right? I said everyone on the face of the earth today. So it includes all of these people. Okay, but it says here min ghayri hasrin, without limit, as opposed to I say I want any person who ever lives on the face of the earth to do the following, right? Or any male Chinese teenager. So I've limited it by excluding certain things. That's called takhsis. I said Chinese male teenager, but it does mean any, okay, or all. So I want all teenage Chinese males to do the following. So that's what we call am. So am is every. Khas is the. Okay? And then a is mutlaq. Right? But now so these are all ma'ani, these are all on our head. Now there's different ways of phrasing that in English or in Arabic. So I could get, for example, something that says a, and I could make it, if I say, for example, don't talk to a cat, that means that's actually am, because I'm saying all cats don't talk to them. So I use the word a in English as, oh, but you just said the word a is mutlaq. Yes, I mean the concept, not the word. So the concept that you get from the word a is mutlaq. The concept you get from the word the by default in English is khas, right? But I could also use the word the in English and in Arabic to not mean khas. I could say, for example, the American, that means all Americans, right? The al-khubs, jayyidun, lis-sihha, right? The bread, meaning all types of bread, right? Bread in a general sense. So there are words that I can use in English or in Arabic or things, but then there's a concept. So we're talking about the concept, right? Here's a meaning that conveys that concept, right? And this is this connection between usul and logic. So in logic, we're not interested in words at all. We're interested in ma'ani. We use words because we don't have any other tool to convey ma'ani. But so remember Sheikh Hamza Karamani saying that like al-manatiqa yakrahun al-lugha, right? That in people, the people who work with logic, they hate language because it always gives complex things. Because there's this mismatch between how do we convey meanings and meanings themselves, right? So when I say, for example, kullu rajulin in Arabic, that means all of a man, like every part of him. And also it means every man. So it's like, what are you trying to say? But the concept is some one thing. So here in Arabic, here we're talking about these ma'ani, something being kulli, every, or juz'i, specific, and is it any specific thing or the specific thing? Okay. And the words in Arabic that convey that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Mizan. This one.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. باب العام. وأما العام فهو ما عم شيئين فصائدا، أي من غير حصر، وهو
So without
مأخوذ.
limit, that's the key thing. Could you add something to it? So if I said, so could you add something to it? Yes, you could. Like it's not there's no limit. So any, all, every, right? These kind of things.
وهو مأخوذ من قوله أممت زيدا وأمرا بالعطاء وأممت جميع الناس بالعطاء،
Mm-hmm.
أي شملتهم، ففي العام الشمول.
Mm-hmm. شمول. Right. Mm-hmm.
وفي بعض النسخ أممت زيدا وأمرا، ولا يصح ذلك لأن أممت زيدا وأمرا ليس من العام الذي يريد بيانه.
Mm-hmm.
What does
So,
this mean though? لأن أممت زيدا وأمرا ليس من العام الذي يريد بيانه.
mm-hmm. So عممت عممت زيد وعمرا و و وعمرا. So this can't be Umran. There has to be Amran.
Yeah, man.
Umar would not have an alif at the end, right? عممت زيد
Oh, he's talking about
Amran.
that.
Yeah. So that
It's
alif,
that one.
yeah, that alif tells us that it's Amr. Okay, ولا يصح ذلك لأن عممت زيد وعمرا ليس من العام الذي يريد بيانه. I'm not quite sure. So he said basically, وفي بعض. So if he's doing if he's doing an istidrak of both, okay, if he's doing istidrak of both, it makes sense. Meaning, when you say I gave to both Zayd and Amr. So well, that's not am. Am is without limit. So that's khas, right? So if he's saying both of these phrases don't make sense because that's not what we're talking about, that's fine. But if he's saying specifically this last one, I don't understand what's going on. If he's doing istidrak of this last point, وفي بعض النسخ كذا and this doesn't make sense, then I don't understand what's going on. But otherwise, the first one is like because it's not. So Zayd and Amr, I gave it to I included I included both Zayd and Amr in giving. That's not what we're talking about anyway. Right? But what we're talking about is al-am, which is all, every. That's what we're interested in, right?
وقوله ما
Mhm.
عم شيئين فصائدا، جنس يشمل على المثنى كرجلين، وأسماء العدد كثلاثة وأربعة ونحو ذلك.
Mhm. So when you said 4 or 5, that's khas. It's not am. Right. Just going to answer that. Allahu
وقول
Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la Ashhadu anna Muhammadan sallallahu Hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. Okay, Bismillah.
وقولنا من غير حصر فصل مخرج للمثنى ولأسماء العدد فإنها تناول شيئين فصائدا، إلا أنها تنتهي إلى غاية
Right.
محصورة.
So if you said 5 trillion, that's not am, right? Because it stops at a certain point. So as soon as it stops at a certain point, and it doesn't mean every and all, then it's not am. It's not what we're interested in. Okay, it says what al-fadhuhu. So notice in mantiq, I'm going to say kulli and juz'i. I'm not going to talk about words that will indicate that. Okay.
Mhm.
In usul, I'm going to talk about it. And so then what will happen then is Adul-Din al-Iji, he comes along, he says, in usul we keep talking about in mantiq, we talk about al-kulli wal-juz'i. And in usul we talk about al-fadh, this and that. You know what? I'm going to invent a new science called ilm al-wada'. So ilm al-wada' is this kind of like is this little thing. There's a small topic basically that's created out of mantiq and usul, right? It's a in linguistic discussion. So it's not a mantiq discussion because mantiq is not interested in language. right? We're not interested in language. We have to use language, but we're not interested in language, right? Whereas usul and wada' is talking about language, right? So this is this huge, what's it called? Crime, academic crime, is that we come into the modern world today and you study linguistics, you are never going to care about what Adl-ad-Din e.g. said or didn't say, or what the Usuliyin say or don't say, even though the Usuliyin, as members of the intelligentsia of the world, have contributed greatly to the concept of linguistics. Because who cares? They're just Muslims or they're just Arabs and they don't know anything. You know what I'm saying? And at best, they're going to quote Sibawayh or quote somebody early. But basically, anything over the last 500 years in the Muslim world does not exist. That's a key concept. So even if that's relevant to your linguistic science, and you're doing linguistics at university, you won't know about them and you won't care about them and you won't be asked to refer to them, even though they're saying useful things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was gonna ask question related to that. Like in the beginning of chapters, the the authors would always mention like the Lugawi meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the Lugawi meaning it's not really found in the dictionary, or it's something it's very rare. It's not like I've been told that not to take the linguistic implications from these books, but rather to actually go back to the dictionaries. Um,
Yeah, that's true because the author is not a hujjah in lugha,
yeah,
like taqleed. So why are you doing taqleed of somebody? Like, this word means this, right? So like Zakaria Ansari mentions this in various books of his. He's talking about like the word wudu, not wudu, the word ghusl, right? So we use the word ghusl, right? And he and others before him, they're like, the word isn't ghusl, the word is ghasl. You know what I'm saying? Like,
mm,
is ghasala yaghsilu ghaslan. So what's a ghusl? Like ghusl is actually is a thing that you use.
yeah,
Sorry, ghisl is that. So here is like we're going to use this word in a fiqh book, but it's like yeah, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I say or the author of the fiqh book says. There's something called Arabic language, and there are something called imams of Arabic language. So we're going to go back to them, go to their books, and say, hey, what do you call this in Arabic? They say, oh, we call that ghusl. We don't call it ghusl. They're like, oh. So you don't make a difference between ghusl and ghusl? So yes, we do. No, we don't. They're the imams, they're the authorities on that. Don't cross those lines of authority. That's the point. Does that make sense? Like again, here's a fatwa on smoking, and the sheikh said, well, the harm of smoking is only probabilistic. Oh, hang on a minute. I can use your argument in terms of how you navigate the science of it. But when it comes to the science of it, is it probabilistic or not probabilistic? How harmful? That's a scientific discussion. So I'm not going to use what the sheikh is saying in terms of the science that he's referring to and make that an authority. I'm going to use how he's using that information, right? Does that make sense?
yeah,
So lugha taken from lughiyin, hadith from muhaddithin. The other day I was doing a class in inheritance, and the sheikh, the muhaqqiq, is a modern tahqiq. Here's a hadith, and he says, "Oh, this hadith is like this, and it's sahih." And he's quoting the Tuhfa of Ibn Hajar, which in Shafi fiqh. Tuhfa Ibn Hajar and Shafi fiqh is not a book on hadith.
yeah,
So why would you takhrij of a hadith? And that's not a so Ibn Hajar, he was very strong in hadith, right? If you want to follow him in his tasheeh, that's fine. But that's not how we do takhrij of a hadith. You say the hadith is found A, B, and C, and the ulama A, B, and C said this. That's how we do takhrij, right? So that's not good takhrij, right? And the point I'm trying to make is you're referring to the wrong authorities, and that's actually very important because when you start what's it called inbreeding your authorities, you know what I'm saying? Like you end up having the sort of death of a science. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mizan? Do you understand what I mean by inbreeding your authorities? Like here's a discussion we're talking in this science, and one part of the argument is authority somewhere else. So if you don't go and get it from over there, you have a problem. You follow me?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, Khair. النوع الأول الاسم الواحد المعرف بالألف واللام التي ليست للعهد ولا للحقيقة فإنه يفيد. Go ahead.
النوع الأول الاسم الواحد المعروف بالألف واللام التي ليس للعهد ولا للحقيقة فإنه يفيد العموم بدليل جواز الاستثناء من نحو إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا.
So when you find when so what they're talking about here then is they're talking about the types of al. So this is a
Yeah.
discussion in Nahu and in Balagha. What does al mean? Okay. So al then is actually mushtarak. Okay, it's mushtarak. So if you want to do tahqiq of the mas'ala, you say the al is mushtarak بين الحقيقة والعهد والحقيقة, right? قد يراد بها كذا وقد يراد به كذا, right? So the way that they break it down here as if it was three, but it's not three, it's two. Okay? So al can mean al-ahd, which is in mantiq we're going to call it juz'i. So I say the man, meaning Mizan Ahmad himself. That is juz'i, particular, right? It means him. So that means outside of my head, I'm referring to something that has a haqiqah fil kharij, it exists outside of my head, and it means Mizan Ahmad. The man, meaning him. Okay? And El can also mean the man, meaning the male adult, the man, right? So that's that's not fil kharij. That doesn't exist in reality. That's in my head, right? So now that haqiqah, right? It could be for ahad or it could be for haqiqah. Okay, so he notice he says it's not for ahad, it's not for haqiqah, then it means this. That's not actually true because the L that is indicates generality is actually a subcategory of haqiqah. Okay, so we have ahad or haqiqah, and you can also have za'ida like al-Abbas. Like that doesn't really mean anything. So Abbas is definite already. So what did you add when you say al-Abbas? You know what I'm saying? Or al-Layth, like Layth ibn Sa'id, he's called Layth ibn Sa'id, he's also called al-Layth ibn Sa'id. There's no difference, right? So that L, that's Za'ida, this doesn't do anything. But not interested in that now. Okay, so we have Haqiqa and we have Ahd. Under Haqiqa, we have three categories. Okay, we have Mahiyya. So I'm saying the North American bison. I'm talking about the Haqiqa. Okay, so it's like Haqiqa is under Haqiqa, right? Or mm, al-istighraq. I'm going to simplify it now. I'm just going to put it under just two categories. In reality, it's more. But basically, or you mean the class vis-a-vis every member of that class. So here when you say, for example, innal insana lafi khusr. There's a difference between mankind, lock, stock, and barrel are all in a huge loss, versus al-insan min sha'nihi an yansa. Al-insan, the man is given to forget. Like, there's a common thing that he does. So you're talking about the class. So he mentions here a trick is هل يصح الاستثناء منه أم لا? So here's a trick that you can play on yourself. You can say, if you said the, can you exclude from it or not? So I say the, meaning Mizan Ahmad. The man is in England, except Jack. That doesn't make any sense because I'm talking about the man, meaning Mizan Ahmad. You can't say Mizan Ahmad is in England, except. You can't. So when the means Mizan Ahmad, it doesn't work. Okay, that's easy because that's for Ahad. That means the specific. If it's now for category, so I'm trying to say the man is given to forget, except. It doesn't really make any sense because I'm not talking about individuals, so I can't exclude from it. As opposed to when I say innal insana lafi khusrin illa alladhina amanu, I'm trying to say that what it really means is inna kulla insanin fi khusrin illa alladhina.
Mm.
Like, oh, inna kulla insanin. Okay, so the element kull that was different. So that was for istighraq, right? In reality, there's different types of istighraq, but that's what's happening there, right? So, uh, so they will frequently put it as three, but it's not three, right? It's not ahad, haqiqa, and istighraq, or ahad, jins istighraq. It's not. Istighraq is a subcategory of jins. Okay, and it works on how we think. Like you've seen members of a class, you make up a category in your head, and that's where it stems from, right? The man stemming from your head vis-a-vis every member of it outside of your head, right? That's what's going on. So it still stems from that category in your head. Okay. Great. So that's number one. والنوع الثاني, go ahead.
والنوع الثاني اسم الجمع أي الدال على جماعة المعروف باللام التي ليست للعهد نحو فاقتلوا المشركين.
So the issue then is it for ahad or is it for jins? When I say اقتلوا المشركين, does it mean kill those mushrikeen or does it kill كل مشرك? Right? So the point he's trying to say though is there's no difference. If you made it plural or not, it's the same. Okay, that's the point. Al-insan, al-muslimun is the same. Right? Now in English we don't do that. Right? We don't when you say the New Yorker is known to do this. And you say New Yorkers are known to do this. We make it plural with no the, or we make it the and singular. That's how we do it in English. In Arabic, it can be the same. Al-Muslimin, al-Muslim, same. No difference, right? Right. So now, given that there's no difference, what do the Hanafi say? They say that the ism jins, there's ilgha of the jama', right? Because there's no difference between the generic man, or sorry, all men, so the man meaning all men, and the men meaning all men, because there's no difference, then it actually cancels the plurality. So that's why in the Hanafi school we can give zakat to إنما الصدقات للفقراء أي لكل فقير, right? الفقير, right? So it's عام يشمل, right? And so any poor person will count. Whereas for the Shafi'is, we have to give to at least three because it's plural. Does it make sense? So
Yeah.
for the Shafi'is, we're saying the difference is kulli. So when you said uqtulu mushrikeen would mean uqtulu kulli thalathati mushrikeen. That's what we're saying. Every group of three mushriks. Whereas the Hanafi is saying no, it just means uqtulu mushrikeen and uqtulu mushrik are the same because they both it's for jins and that's it. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
In reality, it's a bit more complex than that, but and the Shafis don't agree on that principle. But you know. النوع الثالث الأسماء المبهمة كمن في من يعقل. So whoever. نحو من دخل داري فهو آمن. Whoever. Go ahead, ميزان.
والنوع الثالث والأسماء المبهمة كمن في من يأكل نحو من دخل داري فهو آمن وما في من لا يأكل نحو ما جاءني قبلته وأي في الجميع أي من يأكل ومن لا يأكل نحو أي عبيدي
So
جاء.
Mizan, you read it correctly. Here it says قبلته. Whoever comes to me, I'll kiss him. It's you read it correctly.
قبلته
قبلته.
قبلته
I'll accept him, not I kiss him. That's a bit weird, right? وأي في الجميع.
أي عبيدي جاءك فأحسن إليه
Mhm.
وأي الأشياء أردته أعطيتك.
Right. So can we put the word كل in its place? كل عبد من عبادي جاءك فأحسن إليه. Yep. أي الأشياء أردته أعطيتك. Uh, right. أي كل شيء من الأشياء التي تريدها سوف أعطيكها. Mhm. Okay. وأين في المكان? Go ahead.
وإن في المكان نحو أين تجلس أجلس، ومتى في الزمان نحو متى تقوم أقوم، وما في الاستفهام نحو ما عندك، وفي
Mhm.
الجزاء المجاز.
وما في لس. So
Oh, is it
we're gonna drop
Hamza
the
one?
yeah and we're gonna put a kasra on the lam. وما في لس. Mhm.
وما في الاستفهام
Mhm.
نحو ما عندك، وفي الجزاء أي المجازات نحو ما تفعل
Yeah.
تجزى به.
So the issue then is ma fil istifham is a bit problematic because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say you say the word every, and I'm trying to find out would every the hukam that I'm saying about every, you know? So if I say uqtul mushrikeen, I'm trying to ask, is this am or is this khas? Does it say kill the mushrikeen over there? Or the mushrikeen that exist right now? Or the mushrikeen who are attacking you? Or is it uqtul mushrikeen بصفتهم بكونهم mushrikeen? Or is it any polytheist by virtue of itself being a polytheist? Okay, so these are statements. Here, if I say in istifham, what's the like what's the difference in it? Like, how is it useful if it's am or not? You know what I'm saying? Like, ma andaka. Like, where's the word kul? How am I going to replace that with the word kul? I'm asking you, what do you have? You know what I'm saying?
Whatever you have.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's probably not a very good example. But if I said something like ma, so generally what happens, so
But
another
Ma is isn't it, right? Ma is
ma is am, yes, ma is am. But it's kind of like, but that's a shart as a shartiyya. But fil istifham is like, how useful is that going to be?
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, like so if I say, whatever you eat, you have to pay for. Okay, that's useful. That means every single thing. But I say, ma indaka, so how is that? I mean, I guess say, I guess you could paraphrase it, astafsiru an kulli ma indaka. You know? I guess that's kind of useful, but it's not, it's just practically like, what's the point? Like, it doesn't really help you very much.
Mm.
So here it says, وَفِي نُسْخَةٍ وَالْخَبَرِ, right? Alimtu ma alimta. I knew that which you alimtu ma alimta. I knew that which you knew. I.e., I know everything that you knew. Right? That's useful. Wallahu a'lam.
وفي نسخة والخطب بدل الجزاء نحو قولك علمت ما علمت، بتاء المتكلم في أول، وتاء الخطاب في الثاني، جوابا لمن قال لك ما علمت.
Mhm. So here's a question, Mizan. Is this manuscript or that manuscript, is that an authority, or do you think there are other authorities on this? Like, does it matter what's in this manuscript or that manuscript?
It could, it could.
Right. So for two reasons, it doesn't matter. Number one, it's a textbook. This is not a reference book. So a textbook, the point of the textbook is for you to play this game of downloading information, right? A textbook is there to help you download concepts and download information in bite-sized pieces, right? So it doesn't really matter what the book says, number one, right? Some textbooks are also reference books, right? So that's important, right? That's number one. Number two, um, it's not a, these discussions are found in bigger books anyway. So what it says here doesn't say here doesn't matter, right? And so in reality, there's one particular book which deals with this in detail. So I remember asking one of my lecturers at university, I said, about this, I wanted to find something more about this. He said, where should I look? He says, there's actually a whole book on Am and Khas, right? There's a whole book on Am and Khas by Al-Qarafi, right? So I believe his name is Shihabuddin al-Qarafi. I'm pretty sure it's Shihabuddin al-Qarafi. Al-Qarafi, the Maliki, he has a whole book on it, right? On Am and Khas, right? So anyway, what it says here doesn't matter too much. خير.
وغيره أو غير
But
ما
what,
ذكر.
what 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 this mabhath does tell us, it tells us how important lugha is in fiqh, right? And I've been in classes in usul where people are teaching it, and it's because they don't understand lugha. So therefore, they're actually not even capable of teaching it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm. So
Like,
istimdad, one of the istimdads of
yeah, well, it's like so this is a mabhath lughawi mahab, basically. So what happened in usul is the usuliyin, they realized, like Imam Shafi'i and others after him before him, that basically we're doing these things. These are like, so am and khas is a mabhath lughawi, but they don't talk about that in nahu, and they don't talk about it in balagha. and they kind of talk about it in mantiq, but it's not really not a linguistic point of view. So they had to invent or express their linguistic sensitivities or linguistic appreciations in another way, right? So they basically invented these topics of mutlaq and muqayyad and aam and khas, but they are mabahith lughwiyya mahdha. They are purely linguistic discussions. They are not revelatory, not based on revelation, right? But they're just not found in lugha, right? So the point is then if somebody doesn't have that dha'iqa lughawiyya, they actually don't understand English or Arabic or whatever it is, they don't actually understand what's going on, then they'll make blunders. You know what I'm saying? So like I remember there's a discussion, right? I was trying to find this discussion. It says they mentioned we're going to see later on about the nakirat, right? We'll continue and I'll mention this in a second. But I'm just trying to say concept. If you don't understand language in general, or you don't understand Arabic in specific, you have a problem in terms of many things, but particularly when it comes to fiqh, right? And some people do have that, right? Some people they actually don't get it. You know what I'm saying? So it's no
I've seen that
surprise.
problem. Yeah.
It's like
I've
no
seen that problem.
no
Sorry.
surprise. Mufti Taqi Uthmani, masters in Arabic literature, right? And fiqh. No surprise. Imam Shafi'i, master of poetry, right? Fiqh. No surprise. So allegedly Imam Ahmad, Imam Shafi'i, I don't know if it's true or not, but Imam Shafi'i said that like Imam Ahmad is also an Imam in Lugha, right? There's no surprise, you know?
That makes sense because one of my teachers, he said this a few years ago, but at first I was a bit shocked that he said it. He said about Imam Abu Hanifa that if someone said that Imam Abu Hanifa is not muhaddis, it's not really that big of a deal. But if someone said that Imam Abu Hanifa, he was lacking in terms of language, then that's literally
Exactly.
downgrading his like
Yeah,
credibility when
he's
it
just
comes
not a
to the book.
mujtahid, right?
Yeah,
He is not a
exactly.
mujtahid, right?
Now I understand what he meant by that. Before I didn't.
Right.
I've noticed that in Darling too. Like a lot of Darling teachers, when they teach usul fiqh books, they're teaching the book and they're not really teaching it well, rather than teaching the field itself.
Yeah, because they don't understand it. They're
That's the
they're
issue.
they're, they're basically reiterating the sharh, but they don't know what they're saying. And this is one of the problems with memorization, right?
Yeah.
Memorization is very
Mm.
good, but they can imagine, for example, this happens, for example, in is you're good at fiqh. So this is what, like Mauritania, they say you're going to do Khalil, but actually don't memorize Khalil with the sharh. So you have memorized Khalil with the sharh, right? Um, so that's great, but do you understand it? Because memorization is an aid in understanding, but it is not understanding in itself. So I might be able to repeat something like AI. I might be able to repeat and organize something, but I don't actually understand what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Like,
It's
so
like a
AI is a very good example of like it doesn't actually AI doesn't know what it's saying, but it can organize it. It can teach you. You can say, hey, AI, see whatever it is, AI thing, that it doesn't actually understand what it's saying, but it is able to regurgitate information in a but then now and then you'll see like it doesn't actually understand. I've seen that. Like you ask a question like that doesn't actually add up because you said this, but it doesn't understand that because it just, so being able to speak, right? Like I memorize Quran does not mean you understand the Quran, does it? Right? Obviously,
it's like the hadith. The Nadabullah Imran Samiya Minna Hadithan. So
Mhm.
there's a difference between
رب رب رب
yeah.
what is it? ورب حامل
Well,
فقه ليس بفقيه, right? So
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, the point is that it's like so like do you understand the difference between any? Do you understand what any and all means, right? Like that's just like that's a key concept. It's something like you don't actually understand that, right? So like in Mantiq they have this issue which is kind of annoying, which is like I mentioned before, like kullu insanin versus kullu insanin. And you're like everything of a person, like every part of a person versus every person. So they'll explain the difference, right? And it's like, yeah, I get you. I mean, in English, that's not a problem. It's just a problem in Arabic, like the phrasing, how it comes out. But like someone who's like, I don't understand what that means. Like you have a problem. I remember sitting in a class for myself, right? And Sheikh Ahmed Hassanat saying, the salb and umum and umum salb. And I'm like, huh? He's like, salb al umum versus umum as salb. And I'm like, huh? Like, I couldn't process in my mind the difference between the two. Like, عموم السلب like so عموم السلب, right, is all cats aren't dogs, as opposed to سلب العموم, right? Not all cats are dogs. Like, oh, yeah. So he's just saying this word and him, like, it's in his mind. I get it, right? I don't get it. Like, I can't, I don't know, what does it say that again? Like, I'm lost, right? So, like, you'll find people, they haven't cracked certain things, right? So they're explaining stuff like, you actually know what you're talking about because you haven't cracked, like, that concept or subtleties in Arabic or in English or anything, right? So that's why language is really important, you know? I remember even in Tajweed, one of my friends, colleagues, he's talking about Tajweed, and he said, I realized teaching Tajweed to some kids is they didn't understand Tajweed because they didn't understand phonics. They didn't understand syllables. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they didn't actually crack. So they never cracked anything. So this is one of these problems with so let's say with mixed, mixed background. Maybe like your generation. I don't know if it's your generation or previous. Like come to America, come to England, and you're like you didn't get one language, you get the other language, and you're kind of like lost, right? Whereas somebody who knows one language well, it can be or one system well, and they cracked advanced things in any language, then they can get it in other languages. Does that make sense? But if you're not really sophisticated in one language or another, you actually just lost. Right.
والنوع الرابع لا في النكرات، أي الداخلة على النكرات، فإن بني is مجهول، فإن بنيت النكرة معها على الفتح نحو لا رجل في الدار فهي نص في العموم، وإن لم تبنى فهي ظاهرة في العموم نحو لا رجل في الدار.
Right. So in reality, so number one, is it la? No. Right. We're not talking about la. We're talking about النكرة في سياق النفي. That's what we're talking about. So it's not la itself. Right. So if I said ما في الدار رجل or لا في الدار رجل, the point is I'm saying كل رجل ليس في الدار. That's what you mean.
Mm.
Right. That's what you mean. Okay, so I can rephrase it in that way. So in Arabic, in classical Arabic, we don't tend to use the word any. You don't say ليس في الدار أي رجل. You don't say that, right? That's not a phrase that you tend to use the word any. You just negate an indefinite word. So anyways, that's number one. Number two, he says فهي نص في العموم. So we know the difference between nas and have we done nas and ظاهر? I'm not sure if we've done it yet, but nas, I'm saying
It comes
who,
after,
who
yeah.
yeah, so who do you mean exactly? I mean Mizan Ahmed. Well, there's probably quite a few Mizan Ahmeds. No, this Mizan Ahmed, passport number this. Okay, that's a nas. Like, oh, this majazan, like that لا يحتمل المجاز. I've been very clear about it. I mean this person, right? So that's nas, right? As opposed to as opposed to something that يحتمل, right? It's the ظاهر is it means Mizan Ahmad, but it could be somebody else, right? It could be that guy or whatever it is, right? So something that is so so there's every so nas لا يحتمل التأويل ولا يحتمل إلا الحقيقة, right? And there's other things يحتمل المجاز ويحتمل this ويحتمل that, right? There's other things you could mean. So that's nas versus ظاهر. ظاهر, the default meaning that you'd assume. Nas, something that it can only mean one thing. So is it true that when we say لا رجل في الدار, that is a nas في العموم? No, it's not. It's not a nas. For the Hanafis, right? For the Hanafis, um, for the Hanafi, al-lafz al-am is a nas. For the Jumhur, is not a nas. Right? So for the Jumhur, when you say لا في الدار, لا رجل في الدار, right? The ظاهر is شمول كل أفراد الرجال. It's just ظاهر, right? لا صلاة في الدار, right? لا رجل في الدار is ظنا. دلالة اللفظ على جميع أفراد الرجال دلالة ظنية, right? That's for the Jumhur. For the Hanafis, دلالة قطعية. Does that make sense? So this point here, فهي نص في العموم فيه ما فيه. That's not necessarily the case. So in Nahu, that's the difference. In Nahu, we say, what's the difference between لا رجل في الدار and لا ما في الدار الرجل? Say, oh, the point is, it's kind of like, so it's kind of emphatic, right? It's like emphatic. But there's a difference between emphatic and nas. Nas is لا يحتمل غيره, right? It's not possible. Like there's an actual conflict. Whereas we say that's not, no, يحتمل التأويل ويحتمل, لكن that's that's not really true. Okay. Similarly,
So,
when you say ما جاء من أحد, what's the use in نحو? They say, what's the use of saying min? Like من الاستغراقية. Why did you use it? They say للتنصيص, right? على نفي الجنس. It's there for تنصيص. That's what we say نحو, right? It's there like ما جاء أحد ما جاء رجل بل رجلان. So then you say ما جاء من رجل. You can't say بل رجلان. Okay. So you're trying to say not a man came, rather two men came, right? So you use the word min to do tansis, like absolutely no case. But that's what when they say that in nahw, they're not talking about what we mean in usul. In usul, it's not a nas. ما جاء من أحد is not a nas. That's a dhahir, right? The dhahir is عدم مجيء أحد. That's the dhahir, right? It could be, this could be takhsis, there could be other information, there could be other things, right? Okay, so now here's a question. So I had this question, and I'm not talking about myself, right? But as an example, I remember asking somebody like, Sheikh, okay, what about? So he said النكرة في سياق النفي, okay? Okay, what about النكرة في سياق الاستفهام? So we said ما جاء رجل. That means كل رجل لم يجئ, right? That's true. كل رجل لم يجئ. Right? ما جاء رجل, the ظاهر is it means كل رجل لم يجئ. Okay, what about this? هل جاء رجل? And you said yes and no. And when you said yes, or you said no, it was because two men came, right? So is it also true to say, that when I say هل جاء رجل, this also عام? It is. So it's النفي في سياق النكرة في سياق النفي وشبهه, right? So in Nahu we talk about النفي وشبهه, right? Things that are like nafi, like النهي or الاستفهام or شرط, right? So I say إن جاء رجل, right? Somebody says فإنك طالق. إن جاء رجل فإنك طالق. Okay, that's عام, right? So that's not نكرة في سياق النفي, بس نكرة في سياق الشرط. So I remember seeing this in some of the Hawashi. I mentioned this, like, yeah, but I already know that, right? And so the sheikhs are trying to find it. Is it the case that it's like, Habibi, if you understand what's being said, right, you don't need to look in the Hashia. You know what I'm saying? So this is these things that when you find like a sheikh like who understands, sometimes it's not like that, right? So particularly in fiqh or hadith and all that, like I generally need information that I don't have. But there's a lot of ulum where it's like this is not based on hidden information. This is based on fahm. Do you understand what's being said? Right? If you understand what's being said, you don't need to look at the hashia or the sharh. It's already there anyway. Does that make sense?
mm.
And those shuyukh or teachers, they're like, I already know that, right? It could be A or B, and then the hasher says this. Say, yeah, I know. So it could be A or B. Like, I already know what's going on, you know? So there's a stage there's a stage in certain ulum where you don't have lots of information and you don't have lots of tajriba. So therefore you have to keep going back to the shuruh. Stuff like that. There's other things like Habibi. This is not like usul is made up. We invented it. It's all aqli and lughawi, right? Kalam is all aqli and lughawi. We made it up, right? Mantiq, we made it up. Like it's part of our mind. Like mantiq is like taking the wiring of your mind and putting it on a piece of paper. Like it's all in your mind. So it's not something that is like hidden from you, as opposed to something like Jahili poetry, like, bro, I don't know what that word means, and I couldn't work it out. I will have to go through the Sharh because I don't know what it means, right? So what we're trying to say is like sometimes like you don't understand lugha aslan, you don't understand language. So yeah, of course, النكرة في سياق الاستفهام أو الشرط, it's the same thing. هل جاء رجل means أنا أستفسر عن كل رجل, right? إن جاء رجل فإنك طالق. Okay, it's the same thing, right? It means ولو جاء, it means the shart is معلق بكل رجل. What else? نهي عفوا. لا تتكلم مع أحد. أنهاك عن الكلام مع كل أحد. Right? لا تتكلم مع أحد. لا تتكلم مع رجل. أنهاك عن الكلام مع كل الرجال. Right? كل رجل. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. والعموم من صفات النطق. Right? This is unbelievably important. Right? Another phrase will say من عوارض الألفاظ. Right? والعموم من عوارض الألفاظ or من صفات النطق. Right? So what does that mean? That means that that we're looking at words and we're not looking at actions. So you say, I traveled with Farid Dingle, and that guy was super chill when it came to halal food. I was in California, he ate meat without asking a single question. I was in England, he ate meat without asking a single question. He was in Japan, for crying out loud, in Taipei, in Malaysia, in Australia. I don't know why you're so strict. I traveled with Sheikh Farid Dingle and he never asked any questions about halal haram. Therefore, you can eat any meat without asking. Why is that wrong? Where did you go with Farid Dingle? Right? The first place in California, when you walked in, it said certified by HAFSA. That's the HMC of England, of America. It's like, oh, so therefore he didn't ask that question. The second place was England, which is also an HMC restaurant. He wasn't in Glasgow or in Scotland, where they don't have HMC. The place in Japan was also owned by his friend. So the problem is you took juz'iyat, okay? You took juz'iyat, particulars, and you universalized them, right? What's the process of universalizing juz'iyat is called qiyas, right? That's called qiyas. Qiyas is not, that's a dalala aqliya, not a dalala lughawiyya. Here we're talking about dalala lughawiyya. So a super mistake that people will do is take a hadith that gives a sense, right, that these juz'iyat are like this, and then they say it says this explicitly. For example, the Prophet ﷺ was given meat by a Jew and didn't ask. So therefore, if I'm given meat by a Jewish or Christian, I don't need to ask. You see that? That's called qiyas, right? That's not called umum. So so what you did is you jumped from something that's juz'i, that's not kulli. So the Prophet ﷺ ate meat from, let's say, for example, the Prophet ﷺ was given meat 10 times by 10 different Jews, and every single time he didn't ask whether it was halal or not. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is something min ghayr hasr. All. It's not every and all. So maybe all of those Jews were Jewish, and maybe the norm was this. So you can't take it to something else. You can't do analogy. What I'm trying to say is you can do analogy, that's fine. You find out whatever your illah is, the reason was X, the reason was Y, you can do it. That's something else. I do qiyas is something else. I'm talking about linguistically, that's not true. You can't say the Prophet ate meat, he was offered meat by a Jew and didn't ask if it was halal haram, therefore this. That's not true. That's a jump. Right? So you cannot take what somebody did and make a general statement from it. Unless you want to do qiyas, which is a different mabhath. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So another example of this is the Prophet ﷺ كان يذكر الله على كل أحيانه. Okay, كان يذكر الله على كل أحيانه. He used to remember Allah in all of his states. So all of his states include with in janaba and not janaba, correct? Okay. So we say, what does kana mean? Kana means he used to. Okay, used to means what? Means a takrar, meaning the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in at least two or three scenarios remembered Allah. That's what it means. So it doesn't include all of his states. When you say kana yaf'al dhalik, that doesn't make sense. Kana yaf'al means he used to. He did more than once. That's what it means. It means more than once the Prophet ﷺ remembered Allah in all of his ahyan. But what were his ahyan? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I take this hadith. Okay, this is what Ibn Mundhir, the great Shafi scholars, he takes this hadith and he puts that along with the fact that the hadith, there's a hadith which the Prophet ﷺ, would recite Quran in nothing would hold the Prophet ﷺ back from the Quran, laysa al-janaba, except for janaba. So there's this hadith, nothing would stop the Prophet ﷺ from reciting Quran, laysa al-janaba, except for janaba. So he says that hadith is weak. Okay, A. B. The Prophet ﷺ used to remember Allah in all of his situations. And then he says, dhikrullah is am yashmal qira'at al-Quran. Can you see that? So he said, so when the Prophet ﷺ used to remember Allah, dhikr of Allah is inclusive of Quran. So therefore, there's a weak hadith that says the Prophet ﷺ that you cannot recite Quran in janaba, and there's a sahih hadith that says that you can recite Quran in janaba. Therefore, it's halal to recite Quran in janaba. It's a problem because كان يذكر الله على كل أحيانه لا يشمل does not include all of his states, number one, or all types of dhikr of Allah. Right? Let's say dhikr of Allah could be jahran, it could be sirran. Does it include both? No. Shouting and whispering, it doesn't include both. Rather, the Prophet ﷺ lived a finite amount of time, and he did a finite amount of dhikr in a finite and specific amount of types. So there could be a million, gazillion, whatever, but they are juz'iyat, they are particulars. It's not kulliyat. There's no kulli there. There is no all and every. That's not true. So you cannot use that hadith in that way. That's not sound. The Prophet ﷺ prayed carrying umama. So the Prophet ﷺ, therefore I can pray carrying my granddaughter. Where's your granddaughter? Oh, she's 10 feet away from me. Or the Prophet ﷺ prayed carrying umama, and therefore I can pray carrying my granddaughter. Okay, what if your granddaughter has najasa on her yaqinan, right? So it's not true to say that the hadith is mutlaq or mujmal. That's the case. The hadith is vague vis-a-vis whether or not she had najasa on her. Okay, but you can't say that it's am. So here's a mistake that they're going to do. The Prophet ﷺ did it, so I can do it. It's not the same. The Prophet ﷺ ate meat, so I can eat meat. Yeah, but what the meat the Prophet ﷺ ate is not the same that you're eating. Does that make sense? So that process is mixing am, like a dalala al-lughawiyya or lafdiyya, which is al-am and khas, and qiyas something else. Does that make sense? So those people who come along, those Salafis, for example, come along and say the Prophet ﷺ, he ate meat and he didn't ask. They're saying their illah is that basically their illah is meat is pure until known otherwise, something like that. That's the actual illah, right? Whereas we wouldn't agree with that illah, but that's qiyas. The process is qiyas. The process is not al-am and khas and these things. It's not dalala lafdiyya. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So what you will find then, أهلا وسهلا شيخ محمد, مش عارف أمتى جيت.
Did the class begin early?
We began an hour ago here.
Oh, because I thought it's 9 a.m. UTC.
Yeah, so I think they've changed in England. That's a problem.
Oh, all right.
You're in Morocco right now? Sorry, Tunisia?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've changed. So I know
Yeah.
that
Correct.
They
Right.
changed it. So for America, it's the same time, and for Mizan, it's the same time. Shiprim is this is what time is it in? So you're 2 hours ahead of England now.
1 hour.
1 hour.
Yep.
Okay. So basically, there was a time where England didn't change and America did, and now they both have changed. So anyway, Malish. So what I'm trying to say is, um, where do we get to? We're talking about. So there's going to be many ahadith which talk about what the Prophet ﷺ did, and the fuqaha are basically going to ignore it. Why? Because they don't know what's going on. Does that make sense? So what they're trying to say is it's not actually am. I don't know what it's included, so therefore I'm kind of going to ignore it. You see that again and again, that they kind of seem to ignore that hadith. They're not actually ignoring it. What they're trying to say is this is not actually am. I don't know what it's referring to. It's actually mujmal. It's mujmal meaning I don't know what it's referring to, so I kind of have to kind of ignore it, basically, and just
Is that got to do with like the qaida hikayat al-fi'li la ta'ummu?
exactly. So that's exactly what it is. So al-umum min sifat al-nutq is exactly حكاية الفعل لا تؤم. Exactly. It's exactly the same thing. Right? Now yeah, it is. And there's another phrase that, for example, Qarafi will use. He says al-umum في المحكي لا في الحكاية. Right? So there's an example like that is نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن بيع الغرر. Okay? From Ibn Umar, I believe. نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن بيع الغرر. Could be Abu Hurairah, I might be mistaken. So in reality, that is a fatwa, that is a قاعدة فقهية استنبطها ذلك الصحابي. وأنا بصفتي مجتهدا غير ملزم باتباعه. Does that make sense? So Sahabi A or B is Abu Hurairah ibn Umar, I can't remember. They observed that the Prophet forbade X and forbade Y and forbade all these things, right? And we have them, we have those same hadiths there. And they istambata qaida kulliya that the Prophet forbade every vague transaction. So there's a big difference between the Prophet saying, Inni anha an bay'il gharar versus naha Rasulullah an bay'il gharar. So in reality, the fuqaha will use that hadith, right? But in reality, the hadith, if that existed by itself, naha Rasulullah and bayna gharar, it doesn't really mean that much to us. Because I don't know what the instances were. Because there's a difference between what the Prophet said and what the Prophet did. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? And the best example that always is the Prophet used to eat meat, so therefore I can eat meat. Right? Is that actually sound? That's what it means. That's when you say al-hikayat al-fi'l la ta'umu. That's what it means. The Prophet ﷺ used to eat meat, so therefore I can eat meat. Pork is meat, therefore I can eat meat, pork. So, well, where's the error? The Prophet ﷺ ate certain types of meat. It's not actually am, right? It's not actually am, right? The Prophet ﷺ made dua in sujood, so I can make dua in sujood. Yeah, but the Prophet ﷺ did in Arabic, you're not doing in Arabic. So you've done a da'wah of umum. You've done a da'wah of umum, but it's not am, right? It's not actually am. Does that make sense? The Prophet ﷺ prayed ala rahila. Okay, was he a traveler? Was he in the city or outside the city? I don't know. So it's mujmal, it's vague. من حيث كونه في المدينة أو خارجة. Right? من حيث كونه مسافرا سفر قصر أو غيره. Does that make sense? So now, whenever we're dealing with the actions of the Prophet ﷺ, we have to get a whole forensic team and try and find out what actually happened. When the Prophet was praying ala rahila on a camel, horse, donkey, Was he in the city? Was he outside the city? Was he traveling? Was he not traveling? Was it a long journey? Was it not journey? We have to start doing lots of work, right? The Prophet joined on a journey. I don't know what that means in reality. I actually have to start pulling out lots of things. So I'm going to do lots of things like qiyas. I'm going to ignore certain things. There's lots of operations that have to be done. Whenever I'm dealing with hikayatul fi'al, what the Prophet did, as opposed to as opposed to what he said. And that, wallahu a'lam, is one of the asrar. And when the Prophet said, Sallu kama ra'aytum usalli, and he did not do a commentary. He didn't write a matan on the fiqh of prayer, did he? He's intentionally making it vague. Because I don't know what, like, it's all now hikayat al-fi'l. Right? So actually, it's intentionally vague. Khudu anni manasikakum. Just do what I do. Right? But you actually, he didn't say, the Prophet did not write a book. These are the arkan of Hajj, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when I say this, I mean this. He did not write Hashit and Najdi on whatever it is, in Babel Hajj, right? He didn't write that. So it's actually intentional. Right? So the phrase is al-umum min awarid al-alfaz, right? Umum is something peculiar to words. Al-umum min sifat al-nutq, right? Hikayatul fi'l la ta'um, right? There's various phrases, but it's really, really important, particularly for our brethren, the Salafis, who can find a hadith and just roll with it, right? Even though it's not necessarily the case. Okay, let's quickly finish. It says والنطق مصدر it says ولا يجوز دعوى العموم في غيره أي في غير لفظ من الفعل وما يجري مجراه فالفعل كجمعه عليه السلام بين الصلاة في السفر كما رواه البخاري فلا يدل على عموم الجمع على عموم الجمع في السفر الطويل والقصير فإنه إنما وقع في واحد منهما right والذي يجري والذي يجري مجرى الفعل كالقضايا المعينة مثل قضائه بالشفعة للجار رواه النسائي وعن حسن البصري مرسلا فلا يعم كل so the hadith that Hanafis use is قضاء بالشفعة للجار, right? And they make it عام, whereas the Jumhur, we don't make it عام because it's قضايا معينة. This scenario, that scenario is not the same. فلا يعم كل جار لاحتمال خصوصية في ذلك الجار. Right? So you're going to have to, so what it means is you're going to have to navigate it in another way. So the Salafi will be like, bro, the Prophet joined while he was traveling. I'm traveling. Why can't I join? And you say, yeah, the Prophet slept with women. Why can't you sleep with women? Oh yeah. So there's a difference, right? There's a difference in that. What do you mean? Oh, women he was married to. It's like, oh, okay. There's a difference then. A woman that you're married to. So he wants to say, ate meat, I can eat meat. Pork is meat, I can eat pork. Find me the error, right? And he'll see, oh yeah, these things happen. So the issue is because he's not aware, he can't see the gap. So he doesn't understand what you do. He just seems like you're just ignoring the hadith, which is good, right? Somebody who thought you're ignoring the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ should be upset, right? But the issue is, I'm not ignoring what the Prophet ﷺ said. The issue is you don't know the gap, right? You can't see the gap, the jump that you're making. Prophet joined on a journey. I am on a journey. What kind of journey? The Prophet didn't join on, as opposed to the Prophet said, imagine if the Prophet said, يجوز الجمع في السفر. That's a lafz. The Prophet said that. It's different. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So we will find again and again, each of the four madhahib will quote unquote ignore action hadiths that talk about actions. You'll see it again and again and be like frustrating, right? And obviously it could be there's other proofs against it. The other one is because it's not actually am, and it's kind of less useful there. Khair, inshallah, we'll stop here. Now we're on to al-Khas. So please, everybody else, my apologies, we started early for some of you. Please do listen to the recording. It was pretty important. I spoke about quite a lot of things. Okay. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. Isn't the data of the statement of Aisha? Which statement? Oh, that one? No, it's not am, no. So كان يذكر الله على كل أحيانه is not, it's not am. Because it's an action. So let's take examples, Adam, okay? Adam, did you used to go to elementary school? Okay, so does that mean you went to every single elementary school on every single day of your life? Can you see that? So am means every, all. What it means is on certain days of your life, you went to one or two certain elementary schools. Can you see that? So now I'm like, well, which ones were they, and when did you go, and under what conditions? Can you understand that?
Yeah, can you hear me, Sheikh?
I can hear, yes.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I understand that. I didn't mean it like that. I meant that the statement of Aisha radiallahu anha. So if we only take the statement without the dalala of the فعل of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but just the dalala of the statement, isn't the dalala here am because Aisha radiallahu anha says kul?
So the issue is whenever you use kul in a fi'l, it's no longer, it always means ba'd.
Oh, okay, okay.
Does that make sense? But
Yeah, okay.
because it is juz'i, because part of it is juz'i, all of it is juz'i. Because some of it doesn't mean all of it doesn't mean all. That's what it means.
Okay, okay, I see.
That
بارك
makes
الله
sense?
فيكم شيخ.
Yeah. And so this is yeah, right, inshallah. خير إن شاء الله we'll stop there. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Right, so what it means is, yeah, well, we'll stop there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.